Well, greetings, folks, baseball coaches. I'm hoping to share my RAPA method with you. And my name is John Heffernan. I live in Western Massachusetts. Been coaching around 10 years. I never played at a high level of baseball. I think I quit in fourth grade. And I remember I was afraid of making errors. And we played on a team called McDonald's, and we had a pretty bad record. I remember that wasn't a plus. And then I remember also feeling like they should have given us some free food, and they never did. So that's why I quit. So my goal in life is to, I love baseball, I love coaching baseball, is for kids to want to come back next year. That's always my main goal in baseball and help them become better baseball players. And if we win a few games, that's good too, and that helps kids have fun and want to come back. I have 25 years of teaching elementary kids and other teachers. So, like I said, even though I didn't play at a high level, I had to learn a lot, which was good in some ways because I think I've been really open to new ideas and newer ideas in baseball, which is constantly changing and really changing a lot right now in terms of the way player development is done. Read the MVP machine if you want more detail on that. But I hope I merged some of that experience, some of my knowledge of learning theory I got with my PhD I just received a few years ago. And I try to kind of merge that into a framework, a way of approaching coaching that I hope you'll find helpful. I know I find it helpful, and it kind of guides what I do. It gives me some, just a framework, a roadmap, a way to structure things that is consistent and has similar goals. So some of these ideas I got quite a bit from Chris Williams. He's the Frontier Regional varsity boys coach, and another coach, Jordan Branson, Pioneer Valley coach. Also, he does a lot of one-on-one work and a lot of good information and ideas from just watching him do that. So let's jump right in and see what's there. So as I mentioned before, my goals are to have kids come back next year. That's my main goal. A lot of that's making the baseball experience generally fun. Of course, it can't. Every moment's not going to be fun, especially in baseball, right? Because the spotlight's on you in baseball when you're hitting, when the ball comes to you fielding, when you're pitching. So it's kind of tough that way. It's not like some other team sports where you're kind of in a mass. So I said, come back next year, get better as a player. And I always say we want to win some games too, because it's fun and the kids feel good. And, it's a competitive game too. And I put them in that order. I try to put them in that order. So it depends too on the league, if it's just a tournament team or a rec team. So those could change a little bit. So looking at this diagram here, kids come in with a base knowledge. And what is the base? So it's their athleticism they come in with, the amount of experience they come in with, and their knowledge of baseball. There's a lot of baseball knowledge that you need. Some of that's, technical, how the relays work. Excuse me. Other is the fundamentals, how to field a ball, how to field a ground ball, how to throw a ball. And sometimes these fundamentals are overlooked, but I think they're so critical in my practices. We work a lot on the fundamentals. To me, there's no point in, working on these complex relay systems if a kid can't catch a fly ball or field a ground ball. That has to be there first. So we want to get them to the next level. So whatever they come in with, let's get them to the next level. How do you do that? Well, that's where my RAPA method comes in: repetition, accountability, proofing, and attitude. And these things all need to be taught. Okay, so when I go through these examples, it's not that you're just doing a lot of repetitions with kids. You have to teach the skills first. So when we have our infield example fielding that I'll go in a minute, I don't just say do this. I demonstrate. Okay, how do you field the ball? Where should your glove be? Butt down. Um, Getting that alligator so that your hand is ready, your other hand's ready to grab the ball. And the same with the more mental aspects of the game. I have on the other side proofing and attitude. So that has to be taught too. And I wanted to mention too, it's important that you also model those. So you're modeling good baseball skills and modeling attitude too. All right, kids will look at what you do more than what you say. So you have to model and teach. But let's jump into the big four here, the repetition. So let's start with the repetition. So as I saw a lot of guys coach, when I was assisting coaching, I would just see them like doing basically 2 hours of batting practice. Even worse, sometimes they would do it even at low levels with the kids pitching. So the kids were bored out of their minds, okay? And as a teacher, I know what happens when kids are bored out of their minds. They don't really learn anything, and they tend to misbehave too. So Coach Williams, he stresses a lot about repetition. So yeah, the other thing with the situation, the BP for 2 hours is how many balls are that getting? How many times is he hitting a baseball? Not very many. So what does that mean? Well, they're not going to be very consistent if they're not getting that practice. So all these things have to be automatic, right? And so why do they? Well, they're going to perform it consistently if it's automatic. They'll gradually improve it. Also, when the pressure's on, it's going to help a lot to have that automaticity, and in different situations. Also, you can be more flexible when your base is automatic. Then this is something comes out of learning theory. You're more flexible when something comes up that isn't in the normal situation. So kids will be more flexible, more adaptable. Okay, so the other thing there is, so one of the things we do always, every practice is, we start with infield practice, and kids pair up. They get about 10 baseballs. They go on their knees and they just toss roll the ball on the ground to the partner, and just do that infield, just grabbing the ball, getting the second hand in. Okay. When they get all 10, they go back to their partner, and then they gradually make it harder. They might kneel first or gradually stand up, go add backhands, throw it harder. So just tons of reps. So just think how much more fielding practice they're going to get there, rather than, if you just do BP, they're not going to really get to practice it much. You can also, that's a good time to really watch carefully and correct any issues, okay? So for example, this year I had 2 kids. One put their glove on the ground, so it would tend to hit the edge of the glove and bounce off. So we worked with her on that. And another kid would always close their glove first. And then, but a lot of times he couldn't open it fast enough. So that was a bad habit he had gotten into. So that's what we, just monitor, and that's the other thing. If the kids have a bad habit, it's going to take a lot of reps to fix it, typically. And I had an assistant coach this year, and he would hit outfield fly balls. There's nothing wrong with that. But I challenged him. Well, how can you, instead of each kid, like say you have 10 kids, get 1 out of 10 baseballs hit? How can you convert that? Can you convert that so the kids are more active? So I suggested to him, what if after the kid catches it, you have a kid in the middle between you and the outfield that's the relay throwing the ball back to you. And you have another kid catching it for you. So there's 2 more kids. And I've even seen it taken one step further where the kid hits. So you might do side toss to the kid. So you got a kid hitting, a kid catching, a kid in relay, and a kid in the catching the outfield, or maybe a bunch of kids. So try to think of ways to um, to add more repetitions to the drills you have or the way you do practice. It's going to pay off. Now you'll see me say again a lot of you. So even in when we warm up before a game and in infield outfield practice, if the kid does not do what I want them to do or makes a mistake, I just ask them to do it again. All right. If you don't have the accountability with the repetition, you really need both. Okay. If you have the accountability without the repetition, you're going to expect too much out of kids. How can they do it if they haven't practiced it? I had a coach, he would tournament team coach, and otherwise good coach, but he would, when the kids would have a lot of errors, he'd say, well, you guys didn't bring your gloves today. And what I was thinking, I didn't say this to him exactly, although I did suggest it. And other times was, well, the kids brought their gloves to practice, but they didn't use them that much. So, that's why they were making errors. That's why they were inconsistent in the game setting. So getting back to accountability, yeah. Otherwise, your reps can actually be bad, right? So if you're not checking them, like I mentioned before, they're gonna actually get worse if they have bad habits because they're gonna be hardened, or they'll be even more habitual on the bad habits. So you have to get that accountability there. Before a game too, let's say a kid mishandles the ball or whatever, and I'll just say again, think about how it's, if you don't do that, how's the kid going to feel right before? Like, let's say they end on that mistake. They're not going to feel that confident going into that game. Well, okay, if you ask them to redo it and they do a good job, just think about how much more confident they're going to be. So another thing with that is, for accountability, is yes, to have the high expectations, but not to berate the kids either, especially during the game setting. Remember my example of being afraid. That's why I quit. I was afraid to make errors. I don't remember adults yelling at me, but I certainly see that time and time again. A lot of coaches feel like I can't yell at other kids, but I can yell at my own kid. But that's bad too. I think it sets a really bad example. So you'll see parents, coaches berating kids when they make mistakes. So how much are they going to want to play? The other thing is that going to help them in any way? It really isn't. The kid knows they made an error. That's not going to help them to yell at them. Okay, now what if you do see something as a coach? Well, the best way to handle it is when they come in into the dugout is maybe discuss it with them privately. They may very well may not even need any help, but if you do see something, you can talk to them and kind of gently suggest, all right, how we're going to fix this. Or sometimes, no one's perfect in baseball, even professional players. So you might just say, hey, you'll get it next time. All right, so moving on to proofing. Proofing's a term I did many years of dog training, agility, obedience, things like that, and it's a term from there. I don't think I've heard it used in the kid context, but it's the same idea as that you have to, be ready to go in different settings. You have to be ready to go in the game. Okay, so we all know plenty of kids who are great in practice, but when they get to the game, they kind of fall apart or just don't do as well as they can. So there's more stress. It's going to be harder. Okay, the body tends to tighten up. That's a whole attitude piece on there, which we'll get into next. But how can you help with that, all right? Can you teach that? So a lot of coaches pay zero attention to this, I think. So the way I do it is I have a lot of games and competitions. So there's two things. One is they're fun and the kids love them. And the second thing, it adds a little bit of stress, okay? So it gets them used to that, playing under more competitive, more stressful conditions. So we have something coach taught me called the numbers game, another coach a long time ago, which I love. So you split the kids into two groups. You do soft toss to one team first. Let's say they have 5 on the team. They hit the ball. They wait for their pitch they want. Hit the ball, and they have to run as fast as they can and see how many bases they can get before the one guy on the other team or girl runs out and just stops the ball. So you're getting a lot of running. You're getting running after the ball, which you'd think would be a given in baseball, but I think we all know kids that don't really run after the ball all that fast or don't seem to think it's super critical or important. But as of course it is. And then you have base running, you have conditioning going on, and the kids really get into it. They're cheering for their team. Sometimes I have them strategize about the best order, who they're going to pair up with, etc. So you can, there's a number of games I do. The other day, we had our first practice. I did a base running game. So again, like a relay race around the bases. You can either time it or have the kids go in opposite directions carefully. You can have home run derbies. I've also taken that to. I try to make these variations too. So, having home run derby is good. Give different points for different hits, how far they go. That's typically how they do it. But also, you can. I did it with a skinny bat, for example. So. And last but not least is attitude. So that is different things. There's coachability, which is so important. I'm sure we've all had athletes that are really good athletes, but not that coachable. So that's really going to really preclude them from getting to their next level they need to be. Just because you're good or you're athletic doesn't mean you can't get better, and you have to. If you want to see how far you can go in baseball, you're going to have to be coachable, certainly. And then teamwork is so important, and that's going to help make things fun too. Kids find it really satisfying. I find when they have good teamwork, good communication. Of course, that's so important in life. Such an important life skill too. As we work more and more in teams and groups. And responsibility, I'm sure we've all had players that blame the umps for everything, their bad performance or the team losing. And so I try to, contrast that with positivity. So changing the things you can change, we can't change the umpires. A lot of kids expect us to go argue calls with the umps, which I don't know about your league, but we're not even allowed to do that. Sometimes the calls go your way, sometimes the other way. I tell the kids, and to try to focus on what the things that's in their control, which is their hard work, their performance, their amount of practicing. Are they coming to practice? Are they practicing at home? Those are the things we can control, and not the umpires, for example. And then, of course, hard work is important too. And if you come to practice, they do these repetitions. When you make a mistake, you're accountable to yourself too, and you correct it. If you compete in the games and have fun, it's going to help. So all this attitude, they really will build on the other three. So a good attitude will help with going through the repetitions, being accountable, and keeping it fun too. So I hope this framework's been helpful to you, and keep coaching, and we'll hopefully see you on the field someday.